Welcome back to the HyphenatEdDLeader podcast. I'm Dr. Rochelle Smarr, and this is season two, Leading from the Margins to the Center. You're about to enter Voices from the Huddle, a special series within this season where we will pull up a chair with EDD holders, scholars, practitioners who are reimagining leadership within and beyond the university. These are colleagues that I deeply admire, people who are navigating complex, hyphenated journeys across all educational spectrums, their personal lives, and are really intentionally working beyond the academy. Each conversation you'll hear is a real dialogue, sometimes virtual, sometimes in person, centered on leadership practices, their identity, and multiple hyphens that we all carry. These aren't polished keynote speeches, so buckle up, Buttercup. They're honest, vulnerable conversations where we talk about what it means to lead from the margins to the center. I'm excited to welcome this multi-hyphenate leader to the conversation. So please join me for today's staff huddle. All right. So today on the hyphenate leader, I'm grateful to bring in a good friend of mine, the Dr. Nicole Sesay. Do you mind sharing with us your hyphens? Introduce yourself with your hyphens, educational, personal, or professional. And then just a quick follow-up. How do those hyphens show up in your leadership?
Yeah, so thank you for that. So when I thought about this question and who I am, with the hyphens in mind, I think first and foremost that sets the foundation for who I am. I am Dr. Nicole Sesay, and that hyphenated is really a child of God. And I really have to name that because so often in the educational space that I have worked in, I have always looked at myself through the lens of hyphenated. And it took a long time in my journey to really be able to solidify that first and foremost at the foundation, that everything that's connected to me is through the lens of me being a child of God, and the work that I'm doing is in service of what He wants me to do. And when I think about how it shows up in my leadership journey, particularly at this juncture in my life, it shows up because I am desirous and always desiring to please an audience of one. I think about how important it is when you are gifted the responsibility of working in a leadership role, and how important it is to see yourself fully through the lens that God sees you, whether it is that you're fearfully and wonderfully made, or that you have called to be able to give an output, for His benefit. It helps all the other places and the hyphens that we add to our identity almost become non-existent. It becomes just a description of what is rooted in the foundation of the true work. So I always find myself really seeking God for the roles that He's called me to be in, how He wants me to be in those roles, who I am called to support in those roles, and it has tremendously helped me see myself beyond what a title can offer, because as I know our conversation might lend itself to, that sometimes those hyphens can be challenged when people view you in a different way. And if you are not very clear and rooted in who you are, um, you really can be challenged when those hyphens are challenged.
I agree. I think that's wonderful that you start with a child of God because that is
Yes,
our true assignment, our one role
yes,
here on earth. And I love that you said you're really working for an audience of one.
yes.
And that to me is like a divine statement from you because I'm reading The Purpose-Driven Life right now. And the
No,
chapter I'm on right now, and it's like, how do you just be a servant without being a servant leader? Just serve to
yes,
serve God. I'm like, ooh.
yes,
That's wonderful to hear that that is like your beacon and your guiding point. But can you share with me also just maybe one or two other hyphens that you embody in your work? Because I know for sure child of God, but what else is
yes,
happening after that initial hyphen?
yes. So I'm an educational leader.
Hmm.
I am an author.
Hmm.
I am a dog mom.
Yeah.
I'm a wife.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm an advocate for children. I'm an advocate for learning.
Hmm.
I'm an advocate for the less fortunate, those who are voiceless. And I'll name it has not always been easy when you embody that piece of the work, when you are standing in the gap for the voiceless. I tell you, there have been many times where I've tried my hardest to ignore certain things, but it's just not in me. It's just I am a
Speak up.
person that believes in creating a space where people feel free, feel true, where I'm advocating for those who have been voiceless, whether in their childhood, whether in their adulthood. I like to create a space that fosters a freedom.
Hmm. I love that. The advocacy, showing up for other people and filling in the gap is really what you're
Yes,
saying that you're doing in all your spaces. So let's lean into like this conversation around resistance. You teased it a little bit.
yes,
As a woman of color in leadership, share a time when you faced resistance or were underestimated and how you showed up anyway.
yeah.
There's a story there.
Yeah, and what's so unfortunate is like there are many stories, and I'm sure you can relate. In the book that we're both in, with
Mhm.
my specific chapter, I talk about an experience that I had um where I was where I encountered unbelievable resistance.
Ooh.
And a part of that resistance, I was a first time school principal. I had been an assistant principal before, but I was a first time principal in a community in which I had grown up in and really desire to give back. I mean, I was a product of that environment. And in the beginning, when I had encountered some resistance, I thought some of it was natural. That sometimes when adults, even our children, our community, where they might have become accustomed to a certain standard, in my opinion, a subpar standard, but a standard um, that they have become very comfortable with, and maybe really invited that substandard in because it lacked accountability. So when
Oh,
I came in, while people were excited about this idea of seeing someone who was fresh, with fresh ideas, someone coming new into the community, it was very clear for me that I was there on assignment. And a part of that assignment was to establish what was a standard of being in that community.
all right.
That I believed wholeheartedly that while it was an urban environment, the way that we showed up as a leadership team, as a staff, as a community, even as the students, that
Mhm.
we were there in service of what we knew that they could become.
Right.
And I tell you, in the beginning, there were a lot of successes, but a part of that success, I was met with a lot of character assassinations, a
Really?
lot of unmerited grievances. I mean, a lot of engagement that they were setting a point and making a point that if you were going to come in and try to establish a standard, it was going to be our way. And I'll tell you, which I'll
So
not
much
give it away, but
resistance.
in my chapter, I talk about how it comes to a head, that tension with that educator community that I dealt with. And it's interesting, how I showed up then is quite frankly not how I would show up now. When
Hmm.
I showed up then, I showed up with an exterior that was made of heavy metal. I
Mhm.
believed that I had to embody a woman, an educational leader, a Black woman specifically, where I was not affected by their actions.
Like a
And quite
superwoman.
frankly, I was.
Yeah.
And I had to put on a mask that that undoubtedly showed the cracks, because while I was wearing the mask, while people would revel in the fact that, like, wow, Miss Bethea, you're not being affected by these things, the reality was I was.
Yeah.
So I showed up in a way that was not in the long run beneficial to me.
Mm. Now I got to read your chapter because now I'm curious, like
Yes.
how did this all turn out? Because I knew as you started that story, like it's gonna come to a head, right? Because the
Yes.
community is expecting one thing, you're coming in with this charge really from the district, but also with your God-given assignment, and those
Yes.
three things don't always come together well. But I'm curious, this is not one of our questions, but I'm curious to know like how did it affect you and how now and in hindsight, are you reflecting on it differently? Like what maturity came out of that situation for you to say, I wouldn't have
Yes.
handled it the same way.
Yes. So one, I think it's important for your identity to extend beyond your work. And I found a lot of validation from external from the external. I was constantly looking to find myself in the fact that I was effective in my work. So that was number one.
Mhm.
Number two, I believe in balance. I believe in the idea that to be effective in anything, that means that I have to make room for me to be a full person. That means full emotionally, full spiritually, full physically,
Yeah.
full psychologically. That I often will say, and I live by this now, that it is true that you can't pour from an empty cup. That's something that we've heard. But I have understood that even if I am at 97%, if
Mhm.
I am in whatever area, if the totality of who I am not at 100%, anything that I give to the world outside of me is my need. And it is what I need. And so I found a way and began to understand what are the ways that keep Nicole full. Maybe it's pickleball, maybe it's quiet time,
Mhm.
maybe it's journaling or watching whatever it is that makes me full. I don't have a problem now being able to pull away so that I can be full enough to give to others. And then the third is that I create boundaries now. That means
Ooh.
that there are acceptable practices that are the only standards in the way that I will engage. Before, how people engaged with me, because of that thought that I had to be have this metal armor on, I was really pretending that what folks didn't affect me, and it did. Now
Okay.
I recognize that if there is a level of engagement that I encounter that is not the way that I should be encountering it,
Mhm.
I don't have a problem using my voice to say that
Yeah.
that doesn't work for me. I speak up for myself in a professional and respectful way, but I have taken a stance for myself of what is acceptable behavior and what I'm going to allow and permit in my professional and personal life.
Ooh, I love that. You gave us three really good points. And the fact about balance and setting real boundaries, I think sometimes that can be elusive, not just for Black women, but for a lot of women in colors, like to do
Yes,
those three things. And you can see I'm wringing my hands because I'm like, ooh, how do you do that? And you feel fine and confident in who you are. And I just think that takes spiritual maturity. And I think it
yes,
gives like just knowing who you are to be able to do that. And so I
yes,
really hope that myself and others who are listening to this conversation take that away from you because it's something about being confident in who you are that just makes you walk in this world that much more differently. And if it goes
yes,
back to what you initially stated, like that audience of one, of who are
yes,
you really serving and who are you doing this for and like your assignment. So I'm very appreciative of that response and how you're now reframing how you exist in this world as well.
yes,
Share a moment when you felt marginalized in your own leadership. You shared this incident, but I'm hoping maybe there's another relatable story that we can connect with. And then how did you navigate feeling marginalized in your leadership?
Yeah, so as a young woman of color going into a leadership role, I learned early on of the challenge of what those qualifiers and those descriptors were that were connected to me. Often I was viewed as wet behind the ears. I might have been, metaphorically speaking, of course,
Mhm.
or not capable because I had not had enough experience in any one position from their views to really secure some of the roles that I have secured when I was younger in my career. And often the way around it, and I'm not even suggesting that this is always the best way. I have done a lot of learning, but I often did well more than asked to often, prove that I was the right fit for the role. That was one extreme. I mean, I believe in being effective. I believe in being efficient and
Mhm.
filled with quality in any role that you're in. But, sometimes when we have the qualifiers that we do, have a woman of color, youthful and whatever that is literally or perceived,
Mhm.
we can have a tendency to feel like in order to be taken seriously because we're marginalized for those different areas. She's a woman, she can't do it. She's young, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Oh, she has a doctorate. Oh, she thinks she knows it all just because she's educationally savvy. You
Right.
you can almost work yourself in the ground trying to prove that you are because people are marginalizing you based on their perception
Right.
of who you are, and that can be a challenge. What I will say in a positive light that I've done is, and this is in my field of education, it was often using research to speak for me. So I was often using the language, this is not what Miss Bethea says. I have the experiential data to show that
Mhm.
this strategy, as an example, is effective, but this is what the philosophers are saying, or this is what the researchers
Oh,
are saying. This is what the
yes.
practitioners are saying.
Mhm.
So it moved me out of the equation until folks were able to build up their respect for me, unfortunately, because the proof was in the pudding that I was effective in my efforts.
Hmm. That's I'm glad to see how you share how to navigate that, but also that it's not just kind of happening to one of us, it's happening to all of us where we have to kind of showcase our credentials and our expertise, but that
Yeah.
it's not just me just making up these numbers and these facts. Like, no, the
Yes.
scholars, the practitioners are supporting what I'm saying. And so
Sure.
I truly hope that over time, people will just, it comes out of my mouth. I must mean it. I'm not faking
Yes.
it.
Yes.
I am
Yes.
the expert in my
Yes.
field.
Yes.
So
Yes.
believe me when I say these things. Um, so I'm curious, tell us what's been the greatest joy of becoming Dr. Sesay, or is it Dr. Bethea, whichever you prefer. What's
So
been the
yeah,
greatest?
Dr. Sesay.
Dr. Sesay, what
Yes.
has been your greatest joy? And what expectation has materialized since you've gotten these great credentials?
Yes. So my greatest joy is it has solidified again that I'm a finisher. You know, I finished this race
Mhm.
despite a lot of challenges that came along the way. And I believe any person who has secured this terminal degree,
Mhm.
you've encountered challenges. So that right there gives me a great joy. It gives me a great joy that I started, I excelled, I finished, and now I am using it as a footprint, an open door for the work that I know that God has called me to do. When I think about what I thought was going to happen, and my expectation is I have a deep desire to work at the collegiate level. And I really did have a misunderstanding that I thought that the DR was going to automatically just
Me
just
too.
get me in the door,
Yes,
and so that has been a challenge for me. I working at the collegiate level would feel very full circle, particularly since I have worked in the pre-K 12 space, and I would love to be working as a lecturer, a professor around and with budding teachers and budding principals. I do it as a site supervisor at the college level for
Mhm.
those who are preparing in their practicum right before graduation. But I would love to be able to do what I love to do, and that's to teach. So I would love to be teaching those to give real world experiences to be able to support their growth as they support the next generation of learners.
Absolutely. That's one of my goals too. So I'm glad to know that we're both on the same trajectory
Yes.
here. I mean, there's got to be a lecturer pool or something you can apply for. Because that's
Yeah.
what my program is here at UC San Diego, and they just keep telling us every year to
Oh,
apply. And it's like, okay, apply for the lecturer pool, and eventually we'll need teachers or adjuncts because I want to be a teaching professor and not a research professor. So, because research, you got to
yes,
research
me
or
too.
die. And I'm like, it's too much stress. But I just want to teach
Yes.
and really, as you so
Yes, me
mold
too.
the next leaders who are coming up. Not to be a dictator, but I just want to
Yes.
make sure they know the right things before they enter into the classroom. So,
Yes.
I'll keep my eye out because there's got to be something. And I want to say Dr. Younger, who's the visionary behind the book chapter. I think she's someone who's helping others get into higher ed with teaching. So we might have to connect with her together
Oh,
eventually.
okay. Oh,
Um,
beautiful. I didn't know that.
yeah, there's a few people in our group that are doing some teaching, so we gotta connect with them. But I do see the your Zoom background,
Oh,
and I
beautiful.
definitely want to ask you to share about your chapter in the book, the Black Women in Educational Leadership:
Yes.
Stories of Resilience and Achievement. Tell us about your book, your
Yeah.
chapter, and what's this talk you're having? Because I'm curious, like, should we all be having a talk? Like, what's yours going to be like? I got to go to yours first.
Yes, yes. So I'm really excited about this chapter. I think it's appropriately titled "Coming Out of the Dark"
Mhm.
because it is the experience that I have now fully and continuously being enlightened. And this my chapter takes the reader on the journey of really a tragic experience that turned into triumph. And I talk about in great detail about that experience, and then I move into the lessons that I've learned. And there are three pillars, but I like to identify them as a blueprint to
Okay.
how any person in the educational space or workspace, period,
Mhm.
um, can rise triumphantly from trials. So I take the reader on the journey of the lessons that I learned first in acceptance, and
Mhm.
then moving into forgiveness, and then moving into self-discovery. And I talk about pieces of that story where self-acceptance evolved, forgiveness and forgiveness of others showed itself up, shown itself to me, as well as acceptance, forgiveness, and self-discovery, where I began to discover some things about myself that needed to be tweaked. And I share with folks, these are the lessons I learned and the lessons that I hope can help them when they are encountering experiences that challenge their faith, challenge their identity,
Yes.
particularly when you embody your hyphens,
Mhm.
so hyphens only without the foundation.
Right.
And my greatest hope is that people will be able to say, hey, what does it mean? Here I am with this situation. Let me sit in what does it mean to view myself, reflect, and be able to through the lens of forgiveness. How do I forgive myself first and forgive others? What has this experience come to teach me where I can discover some things about myself that will undoubtedly help transfer this experience that seems and is catastrophic, devastating,
Mhm.
shocking. But how can I learn from this experience so that I can come out stronger, bolder, ready
Yeah.
to do the work. And so I'm having a book launch and talk on a virtual book launch and talk for my chapter on April 11th. And that will be the kickoff. And a part of that book talk in the subsequent weeks after my chapter will be to explore everybody's chapter in the book. So we'll be looking for common themes. I've invited people and asking for other people
Good.
to come, and it really is to be a space for people going through situations that I wish I had when I was going through that experience. So the hope is that it morphs into an affinity group for women supporting other women. And my hope is that this is just a start with this book, my chapter first, all the subsequent chapters, and that we grow into a group helping each other.
I love that. Just like a community, really, like women
Yes,
helping each other.
yes,
Because in my chapter, I talked about mentorship and the lack of mentorship. So
exactly.
I'm grateful for this opportunity that you're taking your chapter of like, here's the lesson, here's the
Yeah,
story, here's the
yeah,
lesson, and here's what we do with it.
yes,
Because I also hear you saying like that discovery is a lot of reflection of like not
yes,
sitting and like compartmentalizing that issue or that traumatic experience, just pushing it off to a shelf, but like, no, what can I
yes,
learn from it? How can I be better as a result of it? So
yes,
I'm grateful for it, and you giving me a deadline, April 11th.
yes,
I gotta get this out soon so we can make sure that you have a good audience for that.
yes, yes.
Um,
I appreciate
Thank
that.
you so much for taking the time to connect with me, and I'm just curious, how can we stay in touch with you? I'll be sure to share the Zoom link for your book talk, but are there other ways that if anyone wants to reach out to you, Dr. Sesay, how can we stay in touch?
Yes, so you can find me on social media under Dr. Nicole Sesay,
Mhm.
YouTube, Dr. Nicole Sesay,
Oh, yay.
and my professional website, NicoleSesay.com.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to connecting with folks in the
Thank you so
future.
much. Thank you for joining us in the huddle today. I hope this conversation gave you something to reflect on, whether it's a new way of thinking about your hyphens, a leadership practice you want to try, or simply a reminder that you're not alone in this work. If this episode resonated with you, share with another multi-hyphenated leader in education, invite them to the next staff huddle. Drop a comment, share a story, or send a topic you'd love to hear more about on either my LinkedIn page or on Substack. You can connect with me on LinkedIn at Rochelle Smarr or join me on Substack at HyphenatedLeader, where I'm sharing more stories, frameworks, and resources from our conversation with the guest speakers from this series, Voices from the Huddle, that are leading into the season 2 theme of leading from the margins to the center. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps other hyphenated leaders find us and join us in the huddle conversation. Please note that Voices from the Huddle is an evolving and curated space, and I'm always open to new voices. So if you are a hyphenated leader yourself, or you would like to nominate someone whose perspective belongs in this very huddle, I welcome the opportunity to learn more from your story and be able to share it with the community. So be sure to email me, connect with me through a DM on LinkedIn or a message through the Substack. I'm happy to begin to build the community to recognize and elevate more voices of hyphenated leaders. Let's normalize talking about our experiences, let's support each other, and really build up this hyphenated leader community. So until our next staff huddle, be sure that you continue to lead authentically, keep embracing every hyphen, and have fun as well. So this is the Hyphenated Leader podcast, and I am Dr. Smarr. I will see you at the next staff huddle.